Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's Friday. I hope you've had a blessed week. I hope you are doing well. It is a good day, and I look forward to worshiping with you this Sunday. Today, I want to talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart. It's God's invitation to us, God's invitation to be in relationship with God, God's invitation to us that while we were yet sinners, Christ came for us. So the parable that we're going to talk about today is in Matthew 22, 1 through 4. It is a parable of Jesus about a wedding feast. Whenever I read these stories, these words of Jesus, I flash to the modern church that we represent today, and I wonder what Jesus would say to us. Are we the modern day Pharisee? And at least in some cases, I'm afraid the answer is probably yes. We are the inheritors of an amazing invitation, as I told you just a moment ago, an invitation to a wedding banquet, a feast, a gift of profound love. So profound we can scarcely take it in. However, we are also the inheritors of a tradition, an institutional church that struggles to change, that likes things the way they are, and tends to look backwards rather than forwards. It's in this liminal space that we find ourselves today, this space between what would Jesus do and say to us and where we are today. We want to embrace the call of Jesus, the call to love our neighbors, the call to love each other just as Jesus did, the call to love profoundly. And that sounds right to us. And it sounds like something we should do. But we struggle to do it. So as I said, it's a challenging place to be. Listen to these words from Jesus in a parable that he told the people of Israel. Jesus spoke to them again in a parable, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like the king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to those who had been invited to the banquet to tell them, 'Come,' but they refused to come. He then sent more servants, saying, 'Tell those who I have invited, I have prepared the dinner. My oxen, my fatted calf have been butchered, and everything is ready. Come to the wedding banquet.' But they paid no attention and went off, one to his field, another to his business. The rest seized his servants and mistreated them and killed them. The king was enraged. He sent his army and destroyed those murderers and burned their cities. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those who I invited did not deserve to come. So go to the street corners, invite to the banquet anyone you find.' And so the servants went out into the streets and gathered all the people they could find, the bad as well as the good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes, and he said to him, 'How did you get in where there were without wedding clothes, friend?' And the man was speechless. The king told his attendants, 'Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen.' May God's word be a light unto your path. May it shine in the darkness and show you the path that God has laid out for you today. One of the questions this parable asks us is, who we are and who we want to be in this world. We are invited to attend this banquet just as those are in the story. We have an invitation in our hand, or maybe more perhaps better, in our heart. The question is, which of these responders will we be? Do we want to be those who come and are thrown out? Do we want to be those who ignore the invitation completely? Heavens no. We don't want to be those people. We know we don't want to be those people. However, we might just be those people. And that's hard. I know no one wants to hear that. I know no one wants to believe that. Especially not if you're watching this and say, "Come on, preacher, I come to church." We want to be those people that are welcomed graciously, invited to sit, invited to enjoy the banquet, the feast, the celebration. Our problem is often we don't see everyone as equal. We don't see everyone as invited. We don't see everyone as God's children. Our challenge as an institutional church is to welcome everyone, to be just as welcoming to the stranger as the people that are familiar to us. We have to offer the same invitation that God has offered us to everyone. We must see the world as full of God's children, whom God sent Jesus for, just like us. And often, it's hard for us to do. At this point in the story, I was pondering the words of Apostle Paul from Romans 5. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person some might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates God's great love for us in this: while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Since we have now been justified by Christ, how much more shall we be saved from God's wrath through him? For if, while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of God's Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through Jesus? You see, we were all separated from God, powerless, as Paul writes. We were all once separated from God. And someone, somewhere, showed us the path to Jesus. Who was that person for you? Did they judge you? Did they tell you, "Oh, you're doing it wrong"? Or did they just love you and show you their faith? I think back to my grandmother. Not only did she teach me her faith, show me her faith, and guide me to Jesus, she also showed me how to live my life in such a way as to welcome the stranger, to love my neighbor, to love the person who needed it, to help the person who needed help, to love that person who was hurting, to invite them just as God invited me. This is the model I try to share everywhere I go and with everyone I meet every single day. We are invited by God into this amazing thing we call the church. We must be God's image in the world and share that welcome with our brothers and sisters, for that's truly what they are, our brothers and sisters that need to know God. So I invite you to be that welcoming presence in people's lives this week. Have a blessed afternoon, and I will see you Sunday.